Are we ready? You guys all ready?
Chair, we're ready to begin.
Recorder on? Okay, recorder's on? Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone. Let's call this meeting to order. It's the Elbert County Planning Commission. It is April 16th, 2024. The time is 7:02. So if we could please all stand. We always start our meetings with a prayer and a pledge. Move your hats, thank you. Dear Jesus, we're here. We wish everybody any issues they have, what's ever going on, help, support. We also help safe travels to and from. And I guess on the other side of things, we would hope for a little bit of peace in this world. That would be nice. So anyway, amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Please.
Roll call. Danny Wilcox.
Here.
Kevin Kirkwood.
Present.
Van Sands. Eric Carlson. Eric Carlson. Absent. Mike Buck. Dee Dee Schott Grace. Dee Dee Schott Grace. Absent. Robert Politic. Robert Politic. Absent. John Gresham. That concludes the roll call, Chair. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, staff report. Do you have any? Mark, got anything?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Planning Commissioners, staff, fellow citizens. I'm Mark Denreader, Director of Community and Economic Development. Just have a few things for the Planning Commission in terms of updates of Board of County Commissioners approvals of cases that you have seen in the past couple of months. February 28, the BOCC heard the core SUR and 1041 that was approved. Also Bark and Barn was another case. And then moving on to March 13, Phantom Creek rezone and preliminary plat. The rezone was approved by the BOCC. The preliminary plat was continued. And that is the update I have for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda, don't see any, correct?
That is correct, none.
Okay, citizen comments. Now this section is citizen comments unrelated to any application we have in the hearing tonight. So is there anything, anybody have anything specifically they'd like to talk about? No? Okay. We'll go on. We have a couple, 3 meeting minutes. So if I could, did we review them? Kind of look over? Okay. So, do we need to review them? Do we need to go over, read them? Are we okay? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve? Maybe let's start with the January 16th. Have a motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. How about February 6th? Motion for those?
I make a motion that we approve the February 6th meeting minutes.
Thank you. Second. Get those? Okay. Second with Van. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's gone to February 20th. Motion for those.
Just a quick comment. Did we get the right agency listed out on that?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
We
Please.
added a condition for the motion for the review by, we thought a CDPHE, but
Yes, I believe that's closer to the actual, I believe it's there. I can check for a moment.
it's a different agency though. I wasn't sure of the agency name.
Is it the environmental phase 2-3?
I'd have to catch it, so just give me a second. I'll tell you which one it is. CDPHE was the name that was listed there. I believe that should be CDPHE. That's on page 4 of the packet.
All right, I have page 4.
If you look at the motion for public hearing number 2, we asked for a CDPHE approval. And
CDPHE. CHPHE.
CDPHE.
CDPHE. Got it. I sure will.
So I move that we accept the meeting minutes for
February 20th.
February 20th with the changes as noted.
Have a second? Van, second. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Our minutes are approved. Public hearing process. We're going to enter into our public hearings. So let me give you a little bit of update. Here's how they work. First thing, we call this a quasi judicial hearing, okay? We're quasi judicial board. That means we judge the applications based on our codes and ordinances that we have. Our personal opinion should not interact into these applications. What we do is we look at these applications based on what's published for the public in our codes. That's where we start, and then after that, we look through them. Then we can look at them 3 ways. We can vote to approve, we can vote to deny, or we can vote to approve with conditions. Now, when I say approve, all that means is we as a board are recommending approval to the BOCC. We have no discretionary authority at all. It all goes to the board. So at this point, what comes out of this is those 3 decisions, and they're all become a recommendation. So they're going to the board anyway. Next, the hearing process goes as such. First, we start with a presentation. It's presented from our staff, from the Elbert County staff, CDS. They'll go through the whole thing. Then we'll ask the applicant to step up and enlighten us on some other things, or if not, whatever they feel appropriate. Then we'll go to citizen comments. So at that point, we'll gather information from the citizens. We'll take all that into account. Then after we close citizen comments, we'll go back to the applicant and staff and ask for maybe answers to the questions that are brought up from the citizens present. That's how it works. After that's done, then the board will discuss and ask questions. Following that, we will vote. So, with that, I believe our first one on the packet tonight is a Laura preliminary plat, and I believe that's a, Zoom. Great. Mark, take it from here, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll hand this off to our contract planner, Sandra Hoffman, who will present a LoRa preliminary plat, case number PP-2023-2003. Good evening, Sandra.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Planning Commission members. I'm Sandra Hoffman. I'm a senior associate with Logan Simpson, and I'm the contract site plan reviewer for the county's Community and Economic Development Department. And as Mark had mentioned, this is for the Elora, also known as Sterling Crossing preliminary plat. Oh, it won't change. Okay, let's see. There it goes. I have to change. Sorry, the button doesn't work, so I apologize for that delay. What you see on the screen right now, hopefully, should be the plat vicinity map. So please speak up if you can't see that right now. And you can see that the site is located to the east of Elbert Road, which is County Road 1, and it's south of County Line Road, which is County Road 194, basically in the northwest corner of Elbert County. The site here is in a very bright yellow color. It's in Elbert County, and that's where I noted is Elora project, also, again, as Sterling Crossing. On the corner to the north is Arapahoe County, and currently it has undeveloped land, but there's a proposed project up there called the Trails at Overland Ranch. And so it's a large single-family development it's also being proposed up there that's got about 373 acres and over 1,000 homes being proposed to the north. To the northwest is the existing City of Aurora development. That's a master plan community. And to the west in Douglas County, there's a Piney Lakes project also being proposed over there. So there's several new projects in the vicinity, and we can talk a little bit later, and you may have comments regarding some of that in coordination with the different projects that are happening in the area. To the north, again, is Arapahoe County. West is Douglas County. City of Aurora to the northwest, and then east would be some residential zoning, RA, and then large lot residential open land to the east, and then, again, more development to the south of where the project is being proposed. This is, if you can see it, a graphic of the sort of the platted lots. They're just conceptual right now, but it gives you an idea of kind of how it flows. The very northwest corner is a commercial piece of property, and so you can see that there. It's approximately, I think, 4.1 acres. And then the lots are in the northern part of the site, and to the south it's going to be open space. And later on I will show you a graphic that shows the trail system that they're proposing for the project. So for the history, the pre-application meeting was held in December of 2023. The community meeting was held on January the 9th of 2024. The preliminary plat was originally submitted on January the 18th of 2023, and the referrals went out on the 18th of January and March 11th for reviews. It did comply with all of the notification requirements per the section 32-1-202, with having the notifications provided within 14 days prior to the Planning Commission hearing, and the mineral rights notice was also completed within 7 days of the hearing. Referrals were sent out. There's a list of the different entities that were provided an opportunity to provide comments regarding the preliminary plat for the Elora project. There were several different comments that came in. The applicant addressed a good part of them, but we'll talk a little bit later about some things that will be resolved as it moves forward to the final plat stage of review. The proposed preliminary plat meets the subdivision regulations, Article 11K8A, regarding the density and a conservation community. So they're going to have 308 single-family lots, and they'll have the 4.1 acres of commercial in the very northwest corner, and they do provide 57% open space area, park area, and the water and sewer service is going to be provided by the City of Aurora. They have a variety of different housing types, basically because of the lot sizes they're proposing. So with the 308 lots, you can see down below on that table, there's 128 that are going to be 50 feet wide, 108 will be 60 feet, and 72 will be 70-foot wide lots. So there's a variety of different lot sizes being proposed. And as shown before, they're more in the northern part of the project area. It also meets the requirements of Article 11, let me see, 4 and 11, Elbert County Subdivision Regulations. And again, this goes into more of the open space requirements, having contiguity and a connectivity with the open space, which they do have, and they've shown that in their preliminary plat, and that it's going to be dedicated to a special district, so it will be the responsibility of the district to ensure for perpetuity those open space areas stay open space and that they're managed appropriately. One of the conditions for the PUD zoning was for them to provide a trail easement throughout the property as to connecting to the regional trail system as well. So what you see up there now is to just to verify that they did meet that stipulation as they're submitting through the preliminary plat, the graphic there with the arrows kind of showing the dotted line. I'm not sure how clear it is on your screen, but it does reflect that they do have a trail easement proposed throughout the inner parts of the development for Elora, as well as connecting to the regional trails system. So the Elora development, the water and wastewater systems will be provided by the City of Aurora. There'll be a metro district created that's going to be responsible for the road on site, the open space, and the infrastructure. And then they'll be having to do a subdivision improvement agreement that's pending, and I'll discuss a little more later about the recommended conditions for the preliminary plat that relates to these items, which involve Delbert Road, East County Line Road, the utility easements on the site that need to be shared between Aurora, the City of Aurora's water and sewer easements, and then all the other utility company easements and how they would be managed on the plat, and then also design solutions relating to future lot improvements. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission find the following. The proposed preliminary plat is in general conformance with the Elbert County Comprehensive Plan. It meets all the criteria for approval in the Elbert County zoning regulations and Elora, formerly known as the Sterling Crossing PUD. It meets the requirements of the Elbert County subdivision regulations, and it will not result in significant impact to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and landowners in the surrounding area. So Community Economic Development Department recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval for the Elora, formerly known as Sterling Crossing, preliminary plat, located on the southeast corner of Delbert Road and East County Line Road, case PP-2023-2003, with 3 conditions. The first condition is the applicant will be required to remove the public hearing signs within 7 days of the Board of County Commissioners hearing. The preliminary plat won't be effective until all fees are paid and all conditions of approval have been met. And then number 3 is the subdivision improvement agreement must be completed and acceptable to the county attorney in final form prior to the final plat going forward to the public hearing. Elements included in the agreement that must be reviewed by Douglas County, Arapahoe County, and the City of Aurora include the following. Delbert Road, that's County Road 1, their dedications and improvements. East County Line Road, which is County Road 194, dedications and improvements. Now, only the parts that relate to Elbert County that are within Elbert County will be under the purview of the preliminary and final plat. Anything beyond the county limits is outside the jurisdictions. But because of the interaction and interplay and parts of roadway dedications and improvements that will be impacted by different jurisdictions, that is the intent behind letting them be part of the review and be able to comment on the subdivision improvement agreement. And then the City of Aurora, again, because they're providing the water and sewer system, and there's a lift station on site as well, again, they need to be able to approve, and they have their own licensing agreement part that they'll have going with the applicant to ensure that they meet those requirements. But again, the intent behind that condition is to ensure that all the different entities that are going to be impacted have a voice and can comment, and ultimately it will come back to the Board of County Commissioners for their final decision as they move forward with that, and you as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, before we start, before we go to the applicant, I do have one question, please.
Sure.
You did mention it in there, and I want to kind of be certain that, discussion on the SIA. In the past, SIAs don't come before the Planning Commission. A lot of those are drafted and implemented at the BOCC meeting. So the intent now is to, that will come before us in the final plat. The SIA, as drafted, will come before the Planning Commission, correct?
Right, as it goes forward with the final plat. So between now, the preliminary plat,
Right.
and that final plat, they're not going to be able to move forward to public hearing until they feel confident they've got sort of the buy-in from all the surrounding jurisdictions, or that they bring it to you and you're able to have a voice regarding that.
Okay. See, in the past, normally, a lot of times the SIA has not come before the Planning Commission. It's many hearings, it's happened that way. So I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you very much. Now that leads me to, as a board here, those questions regarding off-site improvements, if you have those, or if you've researched those, the more appropriate time for those to be brought forth is at time of final plat, and we will hear that. And I'm glad to see that that's being brought to us as a board. Okay, so with that, if we could, the applicant, please present. Oh, how many people are on it there? Doesn't look like a lot. Thank you. So we finally get a role in the outside improvements. Okay, that didn't used to be that.
Thank you for your patience, commissioners. Seems like we always have to have one technical glitch in every presentation, so.
We've known to have our glitches.
And I have similar experiences too, so. So, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Mark Kiefer. I'm with the firm Norris Design. The address is 1101 Bannock Street, Denver, Colorado 80204. So I'm going to be presenting the Elora project this evening. I just had a couple slides to go through First, I wanted to say thank you to your staff and Sandra Hoffman, your planning consultant, for the thorough job that they have done in this project. Every one of the projects that we have coming before Elbert County, have been well reviewed, and certainly I think that you as an organization are being well represented by the people you have working for you this evening. So with that, I just wanted to go over a couple introductions here of our development team. And I also wanted to offer one really small point of clarification on the staff report. I didn't get a chance to talk to Sandra Hoffman about, but the owner right now is not the Platte River organization. If you remember, some of the members of the Planning Commission that were at our hearing last year, that was the original owner. Now that we have moved forward, the new owner, Dan Sheldon of MU Elora LLC, representing the ownership now and also the applicant. So since the time that we started talking about the PUD, this project has now been sold to Dan Sheldon, and he is now representative of the project and is in full control over the property. So our civil engineer this evening too is LJA Engineering. I have Kevin Lovelace, a professional engineer, here to answer any questions that might come up. A lot of these issues related to the preliminary plat are engineering related issues more than zoning. So probably if there were any questions about it, they might be primarily related to engineering. And similarly, we have our traffic consultants, SM Rocha, Mike Rocha, who's here this evening too. He's our traffic consultant. There are always issues like this related to preliminary plats in terms of where traffic is going, how it's being managed, and how it was reviewed in the process. And then myself, Norris Design, we kind of represent the planning side of this project and how this all came together. So that's our introduction. I just also wanted to introduce and reiterate some of the key stakeholders. I think Sandra had referred to them, many of them, as referral agencies, but we look at them differently too because they're a part of our process. We do make a concerted effort to reach out to several of these folks, including the Rattlesnake Fire Protection District. But first and foremost, we've had several meetings with area residents. The Skyrim neighborhood to the south of us, when we first started this project, they've been part of a conversation that we've had since the beginning. Obviously, the Elbert County Planning Commission, since you're hearing this project and also deliberating on it, we consider you a key stakeholder, as well as the Elbert County Commissioners. And also, because we're in this unique situation being next to the city of Aurora and Arapahoe County and Douglas County, we also have to consider them also part of this process because a lot of what we're doing here in Elbert County still affects what's happening on the other side of the county line on both sides, north and west of us. And as I mentioned, the Rattlesnake Fire Protection District, they've been very important and instrumental in helping us kind of guide through this project. One side note too, when we first started having these community meetings, we have them in the Rattlesnake Fire District office out there, and one of the first questions that had come up was traffic control at the corner of Delbert Road and County Line, which those of you, I'm sure all of you certainly are aware, and perhaps members of the audience, that's always been a very hazardous intersection. It was coincidental, it wasn't part of our conversation with them, but the fire chief there took the initiative to get that new flashing stop sign, three-way stop sign, four-way stop sign out there, which I thought was great timing on our part, but that was accomplished by the chief from the Rattlesnake Fire Protection District. And then our final stakeholder, which is just starting, they're just been recently formed and organized, is the new Elora Metro Districts, Metropolitan Districts. Originally, those were formed back in the 90s, but they've been re-upped now as part of our zoning. So they're just getting organized. But again, a lot of our future contracts and future agreements that will probably be coming out of this project probably will be ultimately their responsibility to maintain. And as Sandra Hoffman had mentioned too, the open space provisions and all the public lands within this project are ultimately going to be owned by the Elora Metro Districts. So our request this evening, just to give you, and I think a lot of this has been covered already, but I just want to touch on them very quickly. The original zoning for this was approved by the Board of County Commissioners. This is the upgraded zoning from the mid-90s with the Sterling Crossing project. We came back and redid the whole project and was recently approved December of last year, which allows up to 308 new dwelling units and 5 acres of commercial development. The original plan, and again for those members of the commission that were in our original PUD zoning, the original plan showed like 25 acres of commercial right in the corner, which may or may not have ever been developed, but it certainly was a concern of area residents out there that they were going to have lights and traffic and all the other impacts that are associated with that kind of shopping center right outside of their door. So I think part of our conversations, at least they expressed relief that we're not building 25 acres of commercial sites. We've narrowed it down to just a 5-acre neighborhood site in that location. So then the step that we're in right now, the preliminary plat, this is the first step in the subdivision process. This is really where a lot of the, Sandra Hoffman has mentioned in your codes too, if you've had a chance to review your subdivision regs, this is where really most of these technical issues are vetted in terms of traffic, water, sanitary sewer, drainage, and other technical issues like that. This is where most of the reviews are put into place, which lays the ground for the final process, which is the final plat. A lot of what you'll see in the next iteration of this really is the culmination of what comes out of this preliminary plat process, and it's finalized in the final plat agreement. And as Chairman had mentioned, you know, you'll be also seeing a subdivision improvements agreement as is the case with the Board of County Commissioners, which basically is a contract between the developer, the owner, and the county, making sure that these improvements are going to be put into place. So that's the importance of that SIA subdivision improvements agreement, and that comes with the final plat process, which follows this step that we're in tonight. One final note, though, I wanted to make is that this preliminary plat does not change anything that wasn't already approved in December of last year. So it's identical to the plan that was approved by this Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners in December. Just also want to show you a little bit more of the regional background and location of this. Sandra had shown you a site, but if you look at the proximity of Elora in terms of other projects in the area, including E470, it's not very far from what we're already seeing in terms of a lot of development in this area. Blackstone, again, I'm sure that all you the planning commissioners are familiar with this area, but Blackstone is a developed subdivision right now in the city of Aurora, catty corner to the site. The trails at Overland across the street on County Line is in the subdivision process within the city of Aurora, annexation and subdivision process in Aurora. And then to the west in Douglas County, the Piney Lakes Trails Project is another suburban project in Douglas County that also has a similar agreement to what we have in terms of water and sanitation, which I'll go into in just a minute. So as it's mentioned, and it's in your packet tonight too, what makes this project unique is that there are no wells, water wells on the site using groundwater. So what we would hope that a lot of people recognize, and certainly the county commissioners and the planning commission, that we're not using water that is in Elbert County right now. Our service agreements are solely with the city of Aurora. So it's called an intergovernmental or an extra-jurisdictional agreement with the city where they bring water and sanitation over there for a price. We're buying it. And it's similar to what already exists on that property I've described in Douglas County to the west. So the city of Aurora is extending their services, but I also want to emphasize this is not an annexation into the city of Aurora. This is only a service agreement. And at least as far as the ownership group right now, there's no intention to annex into the city of Aurora. The benefits that are given to this project are strictly the water and sewer agreements by the city itself. So part of your packet does have that agreement in it. This is part of the agreement that was negotiated and submitted with the PUD, so that was our proof of water, and also had been vetted by the Division of Natural Resources and the state water engineer as well. So I just want to also touch on our community outreach program. One thing that I really have to acknowledge, my client and the owner, Dan Sheldon, is he has made a concerted effort to keep in touch with his neighbors in this area. We've had a couple community meetings already, as well as invited individual meetings with area residents out there that, you know, if we had gotten comments in one of these bigger meetings, we made an effort to go out and reach out to those folks and meet with them on their property and just talk about any concerns that they have. Part of that, too, is that we did establish our own website for the project, let everybody know in the area that if there are any questions or concerns, that they could also post comments, and they can also keep up to speed on calendar events that are happening with this project, including any neighborhood meetings that we would be scheduling or anything else. And as I mentioned, you know, what we have talked about, and I'll cover this in my next slide here, actually the slide after this, but what we have here is another image of the preliminary plat. This is what's actually being reviewed that Ms. Hoffman had also presented in her presentation. It includes, it's a plan that meets the guidelines of your subdivision regulations for conservation community. And what that means, it's a provision in your subdivision ordinance that requires preserving 50% of the land in open space, natural open space. In this particular case, we're over 50%. We also, that's including developed parks within the property too. You can see tract B and tract E up there. I don't know if you can see them too well in that projection, but those are developed parks. The remaining portion of this project, tract H and the surrounding area, that's actually the natural open space that's required, if you will, for this designation of conservation community. As I mentioned too, we have 5 acres of commercial site. This is lot 1. We have 2 developed park sites, increased buffer to the south and to the east. The existing property owners to Skyrim and the property owners, our neighbors to the east, have an additional buffer than what that did not exist with the original zoning. And we're proposing 308 single-family home sites. So just to touch on how this worked within our community outreach program, you'll see on the left here, that rendered portion of it. This is the plan that had come out of our conversations with our neighbors. The original plan, by the way, which I don't have a slide of, but I think I presented it at the PUD, showed a different plan completely. That's what we had initially started our conversations with. This was the result of our conversations with our neighbors, which included that conservation area, the expansion of the open space, the additional buffer between our neighbors to the west or to the east and the south, but also shrinking that commercial site to a 5-acre site versus a 25-acre site. So then you look on the left, on the right portion of this slide, that's the actual preliminary plat. So I just wanted to point out that we're using exactly, almost to the point of what was approved in the PUD and our negotiations that stemmed from our meetings with our neighbors, translated into this subdivision process. So what you see is what you get, basically. And this was also presented to our neighbors in the preliminary plat neighborhood meeting we had too. So just another recap. Sandra had covered most of these, but I just wanted to recap these for the record, that we believe that the preliminary plat does conform to the general provisions within your Elbert County Comprehensive Plan, namely the policy that relates to all urban development, suburban development located in the northwestern half or portion of Elbert County. You certainly have seen that with the applications before you lately, but this is part and parcel of your policy within the Elbert County Comprehensive Plan. We also believe that the preliminary plat complies with the requirements of both the Elbert County zoning resolution and the subdivision resolution. As I mentioned, on the subdivision resolution, we're in compliance with that conservation community provision primarily, but we're also working with your standards in terms of how the preliminary plat's being submitted here. And then the other criteria is whether the preliminary plat is served by a viable public sewage disposal system, and in that regard too, a water system. And as we mentioned before, this is being handled by the City of Aurora. They have a well-proven track record that they can serve this property, and they have the capacity to do so. And our agreement with the City of Aurora is in perpetuity. It just can't be pulled away. It lays with the land forever. And then finally, the preliminary plat identifies any conditions or precautions rather, and protections from any geotech conditions that might exist on the property. Again, our civil engineer team has done exemplary job in terms of making sure that the grading and everything else is in compliance with your standards, as well as accepted practices in the civil engineering world in terms of stability. So these 5 criteria come directly out of your code too, by the way, and I think Sandra touched on all of them. I just wanted to add a little bit more elaboration there. But with that, we'll take any questions or comments that you have, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Sir, thank you. What we'll do, we'll ask for public comment.
Okay.
Then I'll probably ask you to come back up.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. So at this time, do we have anyone who would like to speak? Anything related to this application? No? Wow, okay. I wonder there was no names on the list. Okay, so with that, we're going to turn it to our board to ask questions. And one more time, I'd like to remind everyone that conversations related to off-site improvements, okay, and I believe our presenter stated that those will be determined in the SIA, which is in our final process, which we will have the opportunity to input there. Okay, right now, to providing input on it at this time is really kind of needless, because it will go nowhere until we get all the players who have had a role in what's going to go on outside of that development. And that means the intersection, that means the lighting, whatever they're going to do, the entrance, the off-ramps, everything else. That's all going to be decided in that next one. So I would ask that your questions for that, if you could hold on to them, because they'll be back. They will. So, go ahead, Dan.
One of the things that I noticed in going through this application was that there was quite a bit of discussion about right-of-way issues.
Mm-hmm.
And is that what you're talking about here?
Yes.
That those will be resolved?
Yes.
Okay.
Those will all, they have to come down, and since you're dealing with 4 different organizations,
Yeah. No, yeah,
there's
I
going to be
understand.
a lot of input. from
And there was
each
a lot of discussion there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
so,
was one of my main question was, did those get resolved? Well, what you're telling me is we don't need to worry about that until final plat.
we're not going to get those actually cemented until the final plat, until that SIA. That's why I wanted to be sure that we get the opportunity
Yep.
to review the SIA to see what was determined. Okay, that was kind of,
Okay, now the only other question I had was that in reading through this, it was my understanding that you gave away the water rights to Aurora, to the city of Aurora. Is that correct? So they can do whatever they want to with that water.
Good evening, Dan Sheldon, Miller United Real Estate, 6900 East Bellevue Avenue, Suite 300, Greenwood Village, Colorado, 80111. Commissioner, that is generally correct. We, in return for getting services across their boundary, across County Line Road, we had to deed those water rights to them, that groundwater to them. They only tap into it in an event that they call an emergency drought. It's a defined term in their code. They have not seen an emergency drought. Believe it or not, even in as droughtful of years as we've all thought we've had over the last few years, they haven't seen one since the early 2000s. 2021, I think it was the last time there was a emergency drought. So they wouldn't tap into those resources, which would mean drilling a well essentially somewhere, but they wouldn't do that until such time as there was an emergency drought.
That wasn't in here.
Excuse me?
That was not in here.
Understood. There's a lot of the detail that maybe was not in there.
Part of the SAI agreements.
I don't know if that will be. I don't know if the water rights will be.
I'd like
That's
to
probably
see that
determined.
put into writing in your final plan.
The water dedication is in the IGA between us and the city of Aurora that we've already entered into. It's crystal clear in there. In fact, we have already deeded that water to the city of Aurora.
That's the reason I asked.
Okay.
Because if they want to use it, they use it because they own it. So that doesn't mean that Elbert County, in that case, would lose water.
Yes, I think that is correct. In a drought condition, an emergency drought condition.
Well, I didn't see that in the agreement, in the discussion about it, so it's just that you were deeding the water to.
I'm happy to provide that verbiage that I'm referring to right now to your staff, and they can forward it on to the commissioners if that would be at your liking. Okay.
You know, I would say one thing at the end of the final, when we go through the final plat, if that IGA be in there.
In the final plat?
In at least the documentation of the final plat. I mean, just so that,
It can be referenced.
yes, the only reason I say that. Is that appropriate to ask?
Yeah, I don't know if that is appropriate to go into a SIA or not.
It's recorded document, it's public.
Yeah, the IGA is recorded. Yeah, my consultant makes a good point. Maybe we just say pursuant to the water IGA found at reception number, blah, 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 that it can be easily accessed. It's just a long, thick document that's going to be attached to another long, thick document with other attachments already there. But I'm generally not opposed to providing the world, whoever is the reader of that document, that SIA or final plat, wherever you want it attached to, I have no problem referencing what document, where to find it.
That'll work.
Okay.
But it's a public record,
That's right.
so it is out there. It is, so you can't really, but then that would kind of transparency in the agreement you made with Aurora.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay? Right. Mike?
That was also, in regards to my question as well, was in regards to the water from our meeting in December. That was my understanding, is what you just explained, but the presentation tonight kind of glossed over that as far as it made it sound like there was water going to be brought in from off-site by a pipeline or something, where they didn't talk about the water rights.
So, you want to come up? Okay.
So
My civil engineer.
It's a water bank for the city of Aurora to be used when they want to use it.
That's what they do with the water, the raw water that we have, the raw water shares that we have dedicated to them or deeded to them. They will put it in a bank for their emergency reserve, which they tapped into last 23 years ago. So they will not be drilling any new wells in any normal course of business. Yeah, I think the city of Aurora, in the event that they enter into an emergency drought situation. Yeah.
Then they're on a 100-year water rule, or are they on a 300-year water rule per Elbert County?
That I don't know. Michael? 100 year.
It depends on where they build.
But remember, their
Aurora's
water
not
is,
going to build in Elbert County.
Aurora is not building in Elbert, that's right. And their water is Trans Mountain water. Their water is coming from a pipeline, which is coming from the,
Pipeline from up by Brighton and up in the hills.
that's right. So it's not tapping into any of the resources under any of us here, whether we live in Elbert County or in Arapahoe County, north of us here in Aurora, or in Douglas County, Aurora's water is not coming from anywhere near where we are geographically located, our project. It's not where the source of that water comes from,
Unless there's a drought.
unless there's an extreme drought.
Set up so good. Listen, you should go take a tour of Aurora water system.
It's pretty impressive.
It is impressive. If there is a city that is
Parker was pretty.
planned for 500 years, man.
And
I was
incidentally,
all part of it, so I know.
we will have to comply with all of their rules and regulations and requirements with regards to our water service to our customers. It's their water. We have to play by their rules. And that includes the amount of turf and irrigation on the outside of the house, as well as the consumable water on the inside of the house.
And what Aurora is doing with you as far as requiring the water rights for those properties, they do the same thing to every development that's outside their jurisdiction, that isn't annexed in, and so they will.
It's actually more than that. They actually require it for projects inside of Aurora. So if I'm doing business in Aurora, if I own 80 acres in Aurora and I want to turn it into a 200-unit subdivision, I have an obligation to give the city my raw water in return for them to serve me with their potable water system.
And Aurora Water is separate from the city in that they are, I forgot the term, not a private enterprise almost like.
I think it is. It's a utility enterprise.
Yes, they are, and yeah. I worked with Aurora for many, many years.
I can tell you got some, yeah.
Yeah, the pipeline from Brighton and the whole works. So we had to do the hydrant system. Okay. So I'm so aware of what Aurora has of water. I wish Elbert County had that. Yeah.
And then the only other thing I had, it might be a typo, Mark, is in the middle of page 211, where it talks about landscaping. It looks like 500 feet of cool weather grass. Is that 500 square feet or 500 feet? Linear feet or square feet?
Yeah, Mr. Commissioner, I don't have that in front of me at the moment. I would defer to the applicant on that.
Square feet. Square feet.
It doesn't say square feet in there. It just says 500 feet.
Don't know how that was missed.
That's all I had, Denny.
Okay. Okay.
So I just have a couple easy questions. So who's paying for the connection to the Aurora water system?
Aurora Water.
So they're making the connections, and they're collecting the connection fees for the 308, right? So
That's
using
correct.
that to pay for their setup.
That's correct. We pay for all the connectivity to their water system, which is currently located across the street. We need to pay to bring the water, physically bring it across the street to our site. And then we pay for all the distribution of that water within our site, meaning within all the streets, and then all the stubs going into each house. And then we have to pay for obviously we have to pay for all the water taps as we buy them from the city of Aurora.
Yeah, I looked at that plan and I was going, I live in an area where we've 283 houses, and we built the water system, and we're trying to manage the water system. Everything was built under the street, so every time we have a leak, every time we have a problem, we're digging up roads. So how are you facing that challenge? Because I saw the exact same plant with both the water and the sewer is directly under streets.
Yeah, I think we're in the streets, but I'm going to have my civil come up. I brought my whole team. I might as well get my money's worth and have some of them speak.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Lovelace with LJ Engineering, 1765 West 121st Avenue, Westminster, Colorado. To answer your question, I started my career in Houston, and
I'm sorry, nobody should have to qualify that.
I'll get there.
I lived there for a while.
So
it's fair for me to say.
development in Houston, albeit very similar for all the same reasons. For some reason, down there, they put all their utilities outside the streets. Now, what that does is make all their corridors much wider. You go through new subdivisions down there, and everything's much further away. Similar size street, much further setbacks. Now they have more land to deal with that. Up here, land's a little bit more expensive, and every development in the Front Range basically proceeds the same way as you're indicating, utilities under the street. And it's not just from a land perspective, but it's also a stability perspective. The area under the street is generally more developed from a civil contractor perspective, and it's more in control of jurisdictions. So in order to solve the problem with maintenance, you do have to go into the street. But that's very common through pretty much every jurisdiction that I've had to work with up here. They will not allow you to put water and sewer outside the street unless you have a really good reason to do so. So to answer your question, who's going to be responsible in the instance that there's water issues under the street? The water, sewer, and force main on site will be owned and maintained by the City of Aurora. So the City of Aurora would be responsible for getting in there and doing the repairs to the utilities, and the Metro District is ultimately responsible for maintaining the streets and storm sewer infrastructure on site.
Got it. Is it profitable for the City of Aurora to manage the water, manage the sewage, manage those kind of elements?
I can't answer whether or not it's profitable, but I do know that the City of Aurora is more than willing to sell their resource, which is water. So for whatever those reasons are, there's no hesitations from them for that. And I will say that it is not cheap. Their water is expensive. There are jurisdictions where water is less expensive than the City of Aurora, but the City of Aurora does a very good job managing their water. So whether or not they're turning profits or doing anything else, I think the examples of them maintaining their current infrastructure are indicative of their business, so to speak, being valid.
So the last piece of the puzzle, maybe it's a question back to the owner. I would actually like to see the language associated with, directly with that preservation of water in a drought situation and what those stipulations are. Somewhere in there, maybe not even in the IGA, somewhere that we can actually look and touch and see. The other piece of the puzzle is if they're drilling in our space, even in those stipulations, they still have to abide by the 300-year rule. And I'd like to see that documented in there as well.
The first part of what you suggested is totally fine. We can have that language sent to your staff by the end of this week. As far as having Aurora required to live with a 300-year rule, I can't speak to whether or not, is that what you said?
What we're trying to do is not set a precedent of
Understood.
Of evading or going away from that 300-year rule. And I certainly want to make sure that we keep that protection in place.
Understood. I just don't know the answer right now whether or not that's something that is currently included in what we have or could be provided to you. So I can't answer it. I can look into it.
Mr. Chair and Commission members, this is Sandra Hoffman. Can I make just one comment, please? We did do a referral to the Department of Water Resources. So Colorado Department of Water Resources did come back and reviewed all of the water data and approved the proposal. So just letting you know, it was sent out and Department of Water Resources reviewed it and approved it.
Well, the question I have is whether they've got 300 years worth of water underneath this piece of property.
I think the answer is yes. I think we had enough water to do our subdivision to the point where we gave that water to Aurora, and in return, they were willing to serve our 308 lots and 5 acres of commercial.
No. The question is, it's a rule here in this county, okay, that you have 300 years worth of water. Now, is there 300 years worth of water underneath this piece of property? Because if they're going to tap into it, even for emergency reasons, then there has to be 300 years worth of water in order for them to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the question.
Yeah.
I think that's what.
I think I understand the question.
Man, I'm sorry, I missed we're having a sidebar over here.
Yeah.
I missed your suggestion.
Well, find out if there's 300 years worth of water underneath a piece of property.
The thing is, you guys, we gotta look at this a little different. Okay, 300 years. Did you go to the state to get your water rights for that community?
Not me personally.
With the
I
developer-
bought the real estate and the water rights as a package.
As a packet, did you have to go to the Colorado Department of Water to get approval for your water from Aurora?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what did they apply to your application? What water supply rule? Do you know? Can you?
Sandy Hoffman, can you hear us? Can you confirm that they applied the 300-year rule?
I'm pulling it. I'm looking for their actual document right now. I'm trying to find the referral comments that they provided. It's in my notes here.
And if you look on page 196 of the submittal, in paragraph C, I think it'll call it out. It's not the 300-year rule.
See, and I don't think they would have to. The reason is they're not using groundwater. Our 300-year rule applies to groundwater.
Right.
Okay? You are not using groundwater.
In the case of an emergency.
When they do
where
that,
they
yes,
do this,
then they'll
that
have to
they
go to
need
the
to-
state.
They need to follow our 300-year rule if they're drilling in Elbert County.
Okay, sounds good. However, when they do that, if they come to drill on Aurora property, somewhere in that development, that is going to be within the city limits of, within the limits of Elbert County. They're going to go to the water department, and the water department will apply the 300-year rule. If Aurora should by chance have to go drill that well in that area, which I can never see them doing, it would be useless.
Well, moreover, I don't know that they can drill once you've got houses, you got the pre-existing conditions of our new subdivision. I'm not sure they can go in and drill.
Well,
it's the reverse setback issue.
They would have to come through the county and get rights to a property.
That's correct. What I was going to add is to drill a new well, they would have to provide an application to the county to drill the well.
Yes.
And although they would have the ability to drill the well, they would only be able to drill it within the confines of the county's requirements.
Exactly.
And to speak to your point, it wouldn't just be drilling a well. It'd be drilling a well and installing linear infrastructure to go to some other location, to a water treatment plant, which would then get redistributed. And in order to do that, the prohibitive nature of that infrastructure is incredible.
See, and that's how we...
All I'm asking is that we memorialize this and document it as part of this. If they're drilling in our area, they're following our 300-year rule.
I think we can work with staff to
and see if you can get something.
Establish the process through which a well would need to be approved and ensure that that approval process would apply the valid criteria.
Okay.
Whether or not we write that specific language into the SIA may not necessarily be the greatest place for that, or even
that
include it
wouldn't
in a
fit
plat.
in the SIA. That has to be somewhere else.
But we can confirm process with staff.
That would
just
be
to ensure that that is the process that would be followed.
It's already in the agreement. There's
See-
no drilling new wells on this property.
See, what
But
you need to do.
He's qualified it as saying, in an emergency situation, Aurora Water reserves the right to drill.
And they do.
Right.
They get the right. And I wouldn't give you water unless they got the right.
I'm not disagreeing.
See,
I'm just
so
saying,
but what it comes down, this is the way we handled independence. Okay? The same thing is going on here is the way we handled independence. And what we did with independence was we essentially had a statement in there, and it wasn't in the SIA, that before they could actually move water off their property, they had to do they had to drill a well, okay? Which then they had to get the property to drill the well. They had to go through the county for the permit. They had to go through the state for approval, okay? Then the next part they had to do is they had to then, if they were going to take it somewhere, they had to provide a pipeline. All that had to be approved through the city of Aurora, through Elbert County. So that's the way we were able to maintain and monitor any type of water usage out of that development whatsoever. And there was one more step that we put on that, is that the only way they could look at giving another group water, that request had to come from outside their organization. So it had to come from a neighboring development. So what I would say is if you want to put anything on this application to make it safe, is say that any request for water outside of that specific area has to be approved through the county. Does that make sense?
And Mr. Chair, if I may add, Mark Denrieder, Director of Community Economic Development. I see it the same way, Mr. Chair, other commissioners. If Aurora has to tap into an emergency well in Elbert County at some point in time in the future, they would need to adhere to the 300-year water rule as applicable here in Elbert County, and would have to go through all the standard, normal process, procedures, et cetera, with the Division of Water Resources, State Engineer's Office, and Elbert County.
And then, Mark, to add on to that, then they would have to do something with a pipeline to send it somewhere.
If I may add too, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Denreader, you also have provisions within your code, the House Bill, or the 1041 regulations that you have, that are fairly rigorous. I think you just had a hearing the other day on that. But, you know, it is a whole process that Elbert County actually has in order for water to be transferred outside of the county. That's the same provision that Independence has too, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
It's a separate permit. It's not even part of the actual development agreement, but it is referenced in the Independence development agreements that process exists. So your existing 1041 regulations cover any water being moved outside of Elbert County, or even actually any water moved off the development.
This case is different though, because you're taking water in and you're conveying water rights and mineral rights as well, I believe.
But the city of Aurora would be responsible for moving that water themselves, so they would still have to go through a permit. Independence owns the water.
I'm just saying it's a reverse. You can't use Independence as a benchmark for this. You have to basically sit there and say, okay, so we're going to trust that our regulations and process is going to cover this. And all I'm saying is memorialize it so that we don't have to worry about that quite as much. It's still a trust me, but, and you know what trust me means in these contexts.
Absolutely.
So,
if I can also make one other point too, and I think it was the issue of, in my presentation, talking about no wells on the site. You know, and I think there are provisions within those agreements that are fairly straightforward, probably bullet point type agreements. But the city of Aurora right now is hundreds of square miles of real estate. And each one of those areas is subject to a well, potentially. The city of Aurora also has a policy. They're not going to be reliant on groundwater, except for in the case of emergency droughts. That's part of a water portfolio that the state engineer reviews, but their primary source of water for any development in the city of Aurora, including these extra jurisdictional agreements, is within their trans-mountain diversion water, which by any standard is well above a 300-year rule. It's more dependent, it's a renewable resource, it relies on surface water, and it's a water right that is protected by the state constitution.
Okay. The other thing, the city of Aurora, 153 square miles, I think is what the city of Aurora was before I left, right when I left.
hopefully it's not 158 square miles.
Okay, maybe it is now. So the other thing is that they keep that in there because there's a number of properties that still rely on groundwater. However, the city of Aurora has never accessed or anything groundwater for a long period of time because they've got so much, they've got such an elaborate water system.
I would say first and foremost, it's speculation on my part, but it would not make economic sense.
It wouldn't.
For them to drill one well on this property to just serve these particular homes when they have a more efficient system. If they ever had to go to wells, it would be probably somewhere within the city of Aurora that would be augmenting their existing water system.
So, okay. How are
No
you
more
doing?
questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow. Water. Okay. I do have questions about water, though. All right. Because it is a little confusing. since you're gonna use the City of Aurora water, then you're gonna establish metro districts, which are metro districts, and we'll see your service plan then coming up towards the end, right?
Our service plans, Mr. Commissioner, were approved at the December
Okay,
26th hearing.
okay. All right, so part of that service plan, can you go over, since you're pulling water from Aurora, and this is just from my understanding, since you're pulling water from Aurora, you're getting tap fees. How much of that service plan, the fees through taxes will go to pay for the water?
How much is the mill levy that the district's collecting?
Is there a mill in there that will cover that water fee to Aurora?
No, the water fee is going to be paid by a builder. You're talking about a one-time fee? No, you're not talking about the monthly, you're not talking about the monthly fee, right?
Coming to each house, yeah, and you'll pay, I don't know what those will be, they'll be pretty significant.
Whatever they are, yeah.
Yeah, so then, to maintain that infrastructure, you don't need a metro district to maintain your wells because you're relying on Aurora. So then these people will pay a monthly water bill to Aurora, correct?
Correct.
Okay, okay. So that won't be included in your metro district?
Correct. They'll get a separate water bill
That'll be a
for
separate
water and
water bill
sewer
to the
from
city
the
of
city of Aurora.
Okay, all right, that helps. One thing I was gonna tell you, this development, you've got 53% open space,
I think it's 57, but yes,
57%. That's actually over what the code requires.
that's correct.
Okay, do you know what the code requires? I hate to ask that. I should know.
It requires 50% or greater to be considered a conservation subdivision.
Okay, okay. Let's see, the only difference from this application to the one previous was ownership, correct?
As far as the layout, are you talking about? Are you talking about
Just
the layout?
ownership of the property. I
Yeah,
think
the
that
ownership has
changed
changed since
Yes,
we were back in here in December. The layout has not changed one bit. What the commissioners, those of you who were here, and then the county commissioners, what you all saw at our December hearings is identical to what you're seeing tonight. We have not changed anything. All we've done is advance those plan sets and started actually putting engineering to what was previously just pretty color pictures.
Okay, okay. All right. Last question, or kind of a comment is, you'll be dealing with Aurora over more things, correct? When you go to the SIA, when you get to dealing with off-site improvements and everything else?
Yeah, that's a good observation. I said to my team recently that if we do a good enough job to get through the preliminary plat stage here tonight and a couple of weeks from now in front of the BOCC, that's when the real heavy lifting begins for the consultant team, because we've got to go meet with the city of Aurora, Arapahoe County, Douglas County. All three of those jurisdictions, in addition to your own jurisdiction, are all going to have various agreements that are going to need to get swabbed out and entered into by the time we get to final plat. So there's a lot of work to do.
There will be a lot of negotiations on cost and everything else on who's going to build what. One thing, just put in there, Aurora has a very, very robust emergency warning system. And it is right across the street.
From this site?
From this site. It's in Blackstone.
In Blackstone.
Yeah.
And that's the warning system when there's a natural disaster?
Yes. And I would say that, if you get to that point, ask Aurora if they would be open to.
Adding us to it?
Yeah, adding a siren.
If it's really robust, catty corner to us, maybe our residents.
It's going to be pretty good. You're going to be able to hear it because it's within a certain radius.
Yeah.
Don't remember the thing, but it might be a question you ask Aurora.
Yeah, very good.
Would you be open to protecting our community with your warning system?
Yeah. Well, we certainly would be open to that. And
Right.
happy to ask that of Aurora.
Okay.
Thank you, commissioners.
Any more questions? Okay, call for a vote.
guess I'll make a motion that we recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners that for the, what's the name of this? Anyway, for
It is preliminary plat,
preliminary plat,
case,
case number 2023-2003.
correct. Do we have a second?
For Elora.
Do we have a second?
Do we want to add the stipulations of memorializing the water?
You want to do those now or in the final plat?
I kind of want to at least get the thought
Well,
in place now, at least we'll have it in the meeting minutes, I guess.
it would
But-
fit more in the final plat.
Okay, I'm willing to wait.
It would, then it would be, you would fit it and then they could tell where to put it.
Okay.
Okay?
Pardon me,
Second.
Chair, the second was John?
seconded?
Thank you.
Okay, then, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm waiting on the final plat before I say yes or no.
All right,
As you say, he said, you guys got a lot of work to do.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
You guys need a break?
Want to take a break?
Do we remember how to turn this?
Oh, man, they are loud.
Remember? This is
After
another
the
issue.
tornado went through Aurora,
There you go. Thank you.
we were tasked with, be sure that, and I don't remember the circular thing, that we covered the whole city. It cost us $750,000 to put in emergency warning sirens. And we had to get it done in a year. Yeah, it was the biggest, oh, man. It was, they worked. Okay, you want a break or do we go on?
Well, we have the rules after that, so.
Yeah. You want to try to get through this one?
Trucking, yeah.
Okay. Next one is Kelly Air Park, PUD amendment. Okay,
Good evening. My name is Guilherme. I'm here for the Kelly Air Park PUD Guide Amendment. Hello. Good evening. I'm here for the Kelly Air Park PUD Guide Amendment, case number PA 20232465. What is requested is a PUD written guide amendment. The action is allow for a AWOS, Automated Weather Observation System, an Elbert County Fire District cistern well head in the common area, along with storing material and equipment necessary for repairs and maintenance of the common area. It's located on Kelly Air Park PUD on 24652 David C. Johnson Loop on County Road 124, Elbert, Colorado. According to the county regulation, zoning regulation, Article 7D4, any proposed change or amendment to an approved development guide standards or a PUD graphic, other than those allowed in the standard flexibility statement, shall require public hearings before the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. That's why we are here, even if it's a super minor change, but this is what regulation says. The applicant is James O'Norman. The pre-application meeting were was waived by the director because we have a lot of communications before the formal application. Community meeting is not requested by regulation for this case. The application submittal was on January 31, 2024, and the hearing dates for the Planning Commission today, and it's scheduled for the BOCC on April 24. It's located on South Elizabeth, County Road 124. It's on south of Elizabeth. We can see here, this is small blue is where the Kelly Air Park PUD is located. This is the track A, okay, between those two lots, here and here, where is the referred use that they are proposing will be located. This is a zoning map locating, here is the Kelly Air Park PUD surrounded by agriculture zoning land, and here north is Elizabeth. This is an aerial map from the PUD, Kelly Air Park PUD. This is the updated language for the new note on Kelly Air Park Plat and Written PUD Guide. The area of land between lot 57 and 8, as defined on Kelly Air Park Plat, is known as the Kelly Air Park Annex within Tract A. The annex may contain items such as the AWOS, the cistern, may be used for Kelly Air Park common area material and equipment storage necessary for repair and maintenance of the Kelly Air Park common area, and may contain items that support the Kelly Air Park community as approved by the membership. This is the site plan locating the track A on the Kelly Air Park subdivision. Those are all the referral agencies that we had responses on this referral process. No objections are outstanding from the contacted referral agencies. Other than a PUD written guide amendment, changing the use for the Tract A subsection, there are no changes in the PUD graphic plans. We are only changing the written guide amendment. All agencies recommended approval for the PUD written guide amendment. The conditions from the referral agencies are two. Number one, if any soil is disturbed, it needs to be reseeded with appropriate native seeds. Dust and erosion need to be controlled. Noxious weeds must be controlled. If in the future restrooms are to be installed, then ECPH will need to be contacted for OWTS application and permitting. The Article 7F of the zoning regulation lists review criteria, A to F, for planned use unit development request. The Planning Commission is to consider these criteria in their review of the application. The 6 criteria are as follows. Number one, whether the rezoning conforms to and is generally consistent with the goals and policies of the Elbert County Comprehensive Plan. The PUD is already approved. What we are doing is a written guide amendment. Whether the proposed rezoning is compatible with surrounding land uses. The rezoning or the PUD approval is already done years ago. We are not changing the zoning. Whether the proposed rezoning would adversely impact the provision of public service. Again, this is an already approved PUD. We are not proposing any rezoning. Whether the rezoning would adversely impact the environment. The changes in the written guide of the PUD will not impact the environment, and the PUD is already approved. Whether the proposed rezoning would create unreasonable traffic congestion or burden the existing road system without improvement. This is not the case because we are only changing our written guides. Whether the proposed rezoning will not otherwise be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the present or future inhabitants of Elbert County. Again, this is already approved PUD, and we are only changing the written guide. Findings: Elbert County Planning recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval for the Kelly Air Park PUD Guide Amendment, case number PA 2023-2465. The recommendation is subject to the following conditions. The applicant will be required to remove the public hearing sign within 7 days of approval by the Board of County Commissioners. If any soil is disturbed, it needs to be reseeded with appropriate native seed. Dust and erosion need to be controlled. Noxious weeds must be controlled. If in the future restrooms are to be installed, then Elbert County Public Health will need to be contacted for OWTS application and permitting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we have the applicant for Kelly Airport?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, Planning Staff, and fellow residents of Elbert County. I'm Jim Norman, Vice President of the Kelly Air Park Association. I reside at 24494 David C. Johnson Loop, Elbert, Colorado. Thank you, Mr. Mata, for your presentation. Could you, sir, go to the location slide for me in your presentation? Just real quickly. There you go. So the cross you see is our Tract A. It's about 64 acres. It's where the north-south runway and the taxiways are and where the crosswind runway is. The blue circle is an area of Tract A as well. It's between lots 57 and lot 8, as was already discussed. We've renamed it. We started off naming it the Annex. Actually, we had to make a late change to comply with the GIS office, and we changed it to Tract A subsection. And that's in your updated documentation that you should have received. So we're going to use 3 words instead of 1. Tract A subsection. Of the 64 acres, that represents 1.534 acres of area as identified by survey. Could you, Mr. Mata, go to the land use details slide for me as well? So what we're doing is basically, for the most part, adding language to represent the situation that currently exists. We already have an automated weather observation system. It's been on the field for many years. We have a cistern. On page 3 of our development guide, it talks about a cistern, but the restrictions that's in the guide doesn't allow anything in Tract A, the common area, to be used for anything other than flying airplanes, landing airplanes. So that's why we've come to make this update for the small area, the 1.534 acres, to lift that restriction to lessen it. We think that the restrictions that are in place for the rest of the common area are appropriate. We just want to make this change to this one small area so we can allow for the automated weather system that's already there, that we can allow for the cistern that was put in that's already there, along with that wellhead that's already there. We also need to be able to store material for the repair of our common area, dirt, gravel, and such. And we have some piles there. They're hidden pretty much by the grass. They're also hidden by the hangar that obfuscates that area. So it's not, does not look bad. And we also have added a sentence here at the end, or a phrase, and may contain items that support the Kelly Air Park community as approved by the membership. We have ideas, we do not have plans. We have not approved it. We have ideas to potentially put in a storage building there. If we ever did that, obviously, we'd have to come to get a Group U building permit. If we put a bathroom in it, we'd have to go through the sewer septic place. We don't have anything active, but we wanted to insert that phrase to give us the flexibility going forward, so the membership could vote to do that. Then we could go through the county process to put whatever that may be in. So that's the wording change that we have asked to do. With that, again, I think the summary has been good. Hopefully my added comments made it clear as well. I'm happy to take questions from the community or from you.
Thank you. Ben? Public comment, thank you. Public comment. Okay, all right, I'll go to our questioning. Mike? None?
I do have one comment, though, about the presentation. This whole presentation was over 500 pages. Not that you guys, okay, the whole thing, I mean, including the other. There were 7 responses to the public comment from Road and Bridge in this document. And, you know, we've got a lot of reading to do. 500 pages is pretty, and we have to read every bit of it. So I would request that you only put in the last one or the most pertinent one, rather than 7 or 8 copies of the same document, okay? So this is just and the other problem that could occur, okay, is that we could miss something because we've seen 7 copies of the document and the 8th one contains something else. So,
Van, it's like listening to a good song over and over again.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So you guys, when you put these things together, please have mercy on us, okay? So that we're not having to sit and read a bunch of documents that basically say the same thing. So, okay, thank you, Goody. It was a good presentation, other than the fact that I'm reading. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the feedback.
And by the way, we're sorry to put you through so much problems, okay, for a little piece of land.
Yeah, for a little.
But, okay, that's the rules and regulations. So.
We appreciate your support.
In the presentation, it said that Core Electric was notified and they weren't. Of course, they're not the people that supply electricity. There was Mountain View Electric. They were, and there was nothing from them.
I would defer to the
Maybe
planning.
it's a question for them too, so.
We weren't required to coordinate with the electrical. We are making currently no changes to the electrical. We're not building anything at this point. When and if we are successful for a storage building, again, we'll have to go through that whole process.
They'll have to supply with electricity. Another comment I had was it says Elbert County Fire Protection District. There is no Elbert County Fire Protection District. It's Elbert Fire Protection District. And throughout, I read a lot of the 500 pages. A lot of it said Kiowa Fire Protection, so we were actually in Elbert.
I noticed that too, but we went through.
You went through Elbert because I saw the chief's name signed. So, and I don't know if this was for you or the staff that I asked those questions. So.
Thank you for the comments. Duly noted.
So just a couple quick, easy questions. Anything else stored out there besides, material for repair? You don't have an avgas tank or anything like that?
No. That if we were ever to do that, I mean, that's one of the thoughts. Right. And if we ever do that, it would come through the right permitting and all that kind of thing. It is. I have the grass team. I have the weed team. I have the part of the maintenance team right here. It's dirt. It's gravel. And weed and of your 3 conditions, obviously we agree. We have the weed team lead right here and weed committee lead right here, And so we definitely, we don't like noxious weeds. We try to take care of them. You bet.
It is legal, so come on now.
We have a noxious weed control program that we have to maintain in our development guide that was instituted.
Pardon me, ma'am, could you please go to the microphone? Thank you.
This was just on Jim's comment. I'm Jean Allen. I'm at 24686 Colstad Loop, Elbert, Colorado. I'm a member of the Kelly Air Park subdivision there, and we have had a noxious weed control program for many years, since 1987, and a soil erosion control program. And so we do maintain our weeds, mitigate them on that property, as we do in our subdivision.
Thank you, Gene.
Appreciate that. I have no other questions, Danny, all you.
Okay. Call for a vote. Kelly Air Park, PUD Amendment 2023-2465. That's the number. Motion.
I move that we accept the Kelly Air Park AP 2023-2645, whatever the number is.
2465.
2465. My dyslexia kicking in. As stated with the current stipulations.
I have no idea. Because I've got Kelly Air Park PUD Amendment 2023-2465. You might want to state the same number throughout the document, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, yeah, we have noted here throughout the course of this presentation that there was reference to a different number, and we've got it squared away on our end, so we'll be sure to have that straightened out with the one number for the next phase of this process. Thank you.
Good, Mike. Good. Okay. So we got a motion. We got a second. Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, sirs.
Take a break for a few minutes, then we'll come back.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Mark Dedner, Director of Community and Economic Development, here to present the proposed regulation updates that were in your packet. There are 8 items for you to consider tonight. All 8 of these items are, like I mentioned, are included in your packet. Also, you have seen these prior to this hearing. We did have a work session in person in early January. That was the initial review. Then we made some minor adjustments based on the feedback that we did receive from the commission. And then from there, we actually sent it back to you all electronically with some minor adjustments. They're mostly grammar and readability, clarity, format items. So now we're back with these proposals in a public hearing for you to consider as a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And I will leave it at that, and I'm here for any comments or questions. Thank you.
You go ahead. Let's go around the board. I looked them over. This, since we've been through them, this is kind of the final step, so I didn't have it.
No, it was fine. The only thing I saw, Mark, was that on the, what was it, design guidelines H, that was on page 450. You didn't change the item number from, it was 3, it should be 2, item 2 rather than item 3.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so thank you.
That's the only thing I saw that was.
Thank you for that. So that was just a formatting item?
Yeah, a formatting issue. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I missed the earlier meeting in January, Mark. I wasn't able to attend. But what I'm seeing throughout the document is variations with very significant differences between the words shall and should throughout the document. So for example, this is just one example, page 446 D1, all residential developments should include open space. Who's making the determination if that should be the word shall or should that be the word should? So that's throughout this document. I got about 10 instances where that applies.
Yeah, it was really just a matter of just, you know, the given place in the document, and it was, they were interchangeable.
No, they're not interchangeable. It means totally different. Shall and should are totally different words, and they mean something totally different. So it's not interchangeable. So we'll have to agree to disagree on that because.
Okay, is there a specific place where you would like something adjusted and we can look at that?
Well, I have, like I said, I have about 10 of them. Some of them are actually very important, I felt, but that would be one example in who makes that determination on page 446.
And pardon me, I don't have the same
it's a packet
numbers that you have. Do you have the section, like which of the 8 items that you that we have in front of us?
Yeah, it's section D.
Section what? D?
D1.
Oh, okay. Do you know which is it, like, because we have them listed as
Vegetation, open space, and wildlife.
Yeah, and pardon me again, is this number 1, 2, 3, et cetera?
Number 1, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you, that helps. Okay, great. And you said it was under?
Just D1.
D1, okay.
And that would just be an example of the first one that I noticed, where, you know, we also have the word may and will throughout, but not as frequent as shall and should.
Yeah, and this is all, I mean, please be mindful that this is existing language, and then the only adjustments are those that are, that, you know, have a different color noted here with a strike through.
That's why I said I wasn't
anything
at
that doesn't have
that first meeting.
Yeah, so if it doesn't have a strike through it, then it's, you know, or if it's not noted that it's a new language, it's existing. It's currently in our regulations.
Yeah, Mike, in the first meeting where we were all, well, some of us were present, it was also noted that these were changes, and so the shall and should would be something that we would have added after the fact and during that meeting. But
So wait till next year then, is what you're saying, or the next time we review the rules and regs, the verbiage?
Yes, I mean, we were basically focusing in on a few specific items as it pertains to these proposed changes, and then when we located a specific item while we were on the page, if you will, there were a few cases where we did some formatting and a few cleanup type items, but by and large there wasn't really much taken out of the existing regulations. There was just
Mike does have a really good point, Mark, because he's looking at this going, are we creating a rule in the first one, so all proposed residential developments should include open space designed to accommodate area wildlife? That sounds like it's not a rule, it's a good suggestion.
It's a vague.
And the next one, proposed residential developments shall be evaluated for wildlife connectivity potential with adjoining properties. That's a rule.
Yeah, so thanks for noting those. This would be something that when we come back again with this section at some point, or if there's something that you see that you saw in this review and you would like to bring it to the forefront and let staff know that you have a concern on something, and then we can put it on our list, and then we have we prioritize of what gets looked at next. So this we're not we're not looking at anything else right now unless it has unless we point to it. In this,
Mark, sorry to interrupt, but it shouldn't matter if I attend a meeting or not. That should be your job to notice those things and make those recommendations that we make those changes, whether I attend a specific meeting or not.
Yeah, and I understand, Mr. Commissioner. I'm not suggesting that at all.
Or other board members, not just.
Mark, I have a comment on that, okay, on the should and shall, okay?
Yeah.
If it just says should include open space, it should be shall. But when you add additional items to it, okay, that now it becomes not a rule, but it becomes a suggestion, so.
Yeah. So it's up to the commission. I mean, if there's a section in here, again, there were 8 different items. So if you're looking, let's say, at number 1, and you don't want to look at this, I mean, if you're not comfortable with number 1, just as an example, then you can consider moving forward without this one.
When's our next review?
Pardon me?
When do we do our next review?
So we are on a schedule now, so right now, this is obviously, we're considering this with this current team. This is our first round. And then we're now moving on to the next one, even though this has not, gone through you all, nor the Board of County Commissioners. So we're in the process now of, we have a list. I mean, this is one of those things where we get feedback from the commissioners like yourself, the public, internal staff, whoever it might be, and then we gather the information. And as you might imagine, it's a monumental, daunting task to some degree because these regulations are quite extensive and voluminous. But anyway, point is, pardon me?
I hate to interrupt.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why we are asking this question is, I think everybody that has been on this board for a little while went through a round or two of rules and regs that we put our opinions in on, and those opinions did not materialize. And it wasn't, hey, listen, we took it to the Board of County Commissioners. They negated the rules that you changed or the language that you changed. And so it's a pretty big sticking point. I'll speak for myself, but I was pretty disappointed with some of the past behaviors. And I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about previous administration. And so when we're looking at this, that's kind of the tone and tenor that we have for this specific conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much for including that. Definitely understand. Back to your question, this is going to be, we're working on the next, we're starting on the next round. We're in a prioritization phase of what we want to bring forward again. And, it'll be a small piece and like between 5 and 10 suggestions like we did here, basically. It looks like there's more, to this because this round we did just some additional strike-throughs and adjustments. Again, we were thinking, well, we're in there, let's clean it up just the way it reads in the flow. But if you really look at the substantive nature of, these 8 proposed changes here, they're pretty specific, and it's something that we want to just zero in on some key pieces, especially things that when we're working with the regulations within the planning department on a regular daily basis, there are things that maybe there's an inconsistency or something that doesn't align, and we want to hit those high points first. So within the next couple months, we should actually be ready to come forward again in a work session environment with the Planning Commission and look at the next piece of this ongoing process.
Mark, here's what, can I make a suggestion here?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, yes.
Is that we've worked hard on these, and we put a lot of time in them. And there's some critical things in here, really, that we've asked for, then they're actually making the changes. So about now, the next meeting it goes to, they get approved, and those changes we finally got through. And these are some of the ones that we suggested. So I would say, I don't want to hold this up and go back to a review because really, I get your point, good points. But I would like to get this through, and then let's hold this for the next one, and let's focus on different things, stuff that you brought up in that. But there are some things in here we worked on for a long time, and I want to see them put in place.
No, the materiality, though, is something that we do need to consider for the next round.
Yes, I'm good with that.
I agree.
But let's not stop now and go back and start all over.
I didn't want to stop, and I didn't mean to put I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you brought up good points.
You were trying to clean them up a little bit and go through and polish it up. The material changes between shall and should and those kinds of things changes our guidelines rather than just the terminology. It fundamentally changes them quite a bit. And we do need to address that individually, I think, maybe at a later date, like you're saying.
The next time we go through these, let's go through that, looking at that specifically. Let's start looking at things. Because, actually, I'll say it now. I look at totally different. I'd take shall out of everything. So I don't want to start there because I want the opportunity to voice all sides making changes.
Yes, but for the note, it's may and will. I think you mentioned both of those, shall and should. And those are definitive rule-making words that we can include.
We can look at in our next review.
Right.
Okay. But at this point, what we're looking at is there's a lot of work in this. Meetings, and those meetings were long. And granted, it started with the individual before you, Mark. It started with Greg, and none of them went anywhere for a year and a half. So at this point, if we can get these through, at least we've got some work done.
Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Real quick, though, I agree with everything Danny just said, but let me just give you one more example of how it changes the concept and what it means. The roadway should be dedicated and built prior to the issuance of a first building permit per filing of the final plat. Should it be should, or should it be shall? That's a,
See,
sig-
that gets
that's a
into a
signi-
discussion
Yeah,
that I know people would like to weigh in on.
yeah. So those are significant differences between shall and should, is all I'm saying.
And I don't think we want to start on that conversation tonight.
No.
Oh, come on, where's your sense of?
No, no.
So, any other questions, comments, Mike?
Not on shall and should. I had about 10, I just counted them, there's about 10 instances throughout the document that could go up for discussion, that we could say, hey, do we really mean shall, or should that be should, or vice versa? And then there was a couple may and wills in there that, you know, if it's may, it's not gonna happen. Well, we may require this, you know, that kind of a thing. And it's just, it's very vague. I think we need to sit down as a board and review it and look at those things individually and look at those items.
Yeah, thank you for those additional comments. Appreciate it, Commissioner. When we continue on with the next batch, so to speak, we will certainly be mindful of the shall and shoulds and the may and the wills. Thank you.
And I would ask that we go through this next review. That's the time to really look at it. I mean, we identified a lot of problems over the past couple of years with the codes after they were rewritten. They were rewritten in 2018, I think, right, Mark? 2018, 2019?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And we encountered a lot of issues. We encountered it with the EDZ, huge issues.
But to Kevin's comment about past administrations, I had made recommendations on some different verbiage changes that never got changed, never got any feedback, and it was written down. Okay, hey, well, good idea. We'll take notes, and then
I had
never
5
happened to it.
pages that never got touched. Yeah, it was frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. I did. And it was frustrating. So, but this is the first time, this is the first review we've had since, well, I'll tell you, since Greg took the office. Okay, which was years ago. I don't know how long you've been here, Mark, but.
Yeah, that may have been early 21, perhaps.
Yeah. So,
Anyway.
okay. Good comments, you guys, good points. We can discuss them, hopefully soon.
So I have a
Kevin, what do you got?
I have a comment on E, open space, recreation and trails, scratched out number 9. And I think we went round and round on this for a little while in that meeting. And it's the appropriate open space should include, and that probably should be a shall, to Mike's point. Appropriate open space shall have or shall include water in sufficient amounts to satisfy the needs of open space and provide adequate firefighting water supply. We went through a couple of iterations of whether we should include the firefighting water supply or whether that was assumed. I still don't want to assume this. It's too vague. And I think we do need to have something along those lines in there. Because you include open space things like recreational fields, baseball fields, et cetera, ball fields, and other things that are specific to that area. And so I'd like to have that one opened back up, actually.
See, I disagree. I want it stricken.
You and I.
Yeah, I think you put so many, you put liabilities on things that you can't satisfy.
Well, the point is, if you build a ball field and you assume that there's going to be water for the grass or water for the et cetera, and there's not, because it's not part of the rules and regs, then you've got a problem.
Well, that's established in your water rights. And your
No,
well
it's
decree
not.
and everything else.
This is rules.
Because they look at
and
your
regs
application.
associated with the subdivisions and for the elements associated with how these are being designed. And so these are the things that they're going to follow from a handbook perspective.
See, and I disagree. I do.
You're talking about E number 9, right?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Open space should include water in sufficient amounts to satisfy the needs of the open space and provide adequate firefighting water supply? So you have to supply enough water to fight let's say in a forest area, to fight a forest fire.
So let's take the example that we just went through, right? So 57% of that place was open space. And if we have a wildfire situation, you're gonna want water on hand. Well, this is Aurora's water, but that's kind of beside the point. If you have some ability to fight fire, fight elements like that, do you want to have that ability to protect?
So then you want to take your groundwater that we're already short anyway and supply an extinguishing system to cover the open space.
And if we have ball fields and other things like that, we can't assume that we're designing those in. Parks were in that last display. How are we handling the vegetation in the park?
How you handle the vegetation now is just through the fire department, through mitigation. You're keeping your weeds down, stuff like that. That's how it's handled. That's how it's handled on every lot.
Is there a rule or a reg somewhere in there?
That is through the codes the fire department uses and whatever regulations they're on.
So striking out the fire department requirement and covering any of the amenities associated with the community.
So then you want the county then to take over for the fire department?
The fire department does nothing for ball fields.
No, they will be referred to. They will be a referral.
They do nothing for the ball fields. So you're gonna water ball fields or not? Is the fire department gonna weigh in on
Going to
that?
water the lawn?
Right.
Yeah. So why would the fire department think about that? Why would they, and why would we take a role as a county to look at extinguishment on that open space?
And I'm taking
So now I'll tell you,
firefighting out of it.
I want you to be certain that you establish, it's the same thing as asking to put hydrants in your house. And I want you to be sure that your well, you cover a
You're
cistern
focused on
in
the
your.
firefighting.
No, I'm talking about your residential structure and the lot you have.
You're focused on the firefighting,
Yes,
and I'm not. That's the difference between what we're talking about.
but it's firefighting is what you're talking about.
No, that's part that I said should be taken out. You know, where you have covered space, if it's open space, true open space, you don't need to water. But if it's ball fields, if it's any kind of amenity for a community, you need to provide water for it. You need to have that documented somewhere. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, effort, and energy.
Oh. You mean, so we require they water their lawn on the ball field?
They required to water the ball field.
Okay.
As part of the community plan. Otherwise, you have a nice brown patch of ball field.
Why was the government, you'd do that?
You provide them the ability as the community
Yeah,
to self-govern themselves to include water for those amenities.
Yeah, I would think that's kind of, I look at it as, why would Elbert County as a government get into that control?
You're not
Why would
asking
you do
Elbert
that?
to do that.
That is
You're putting
truly-
a rule and reg in place.
That's what you're
that the
doing. That's
community
government
follows,
control.
And that they have to build for it. They have to plan for it.
Yep. I disagree. I think that's, government grants you the application, they go through the process. You want to build a ball field, it's up to you if you want to water the thing or not. The county shouldn't come in. I don't come and tell you to water your space on your lawn. Okay, that's all governed through your well permit.
Every community.
Yeah, every community,
provides
and
for
I don't want to
water
be like every
for
community.
lawns, and it's part of their plan, and they're required to make that plan in place. So
See, and
if
I
they're
go back
required to
to-
make the plan for their lawns, they should also be required to make the plan for their amenities.
So you're saying that Elbert County should require, and I'll relate it to a house.
Developers,
Okay.
builders, community planners to follow a standard practice of allowing water or positioning water
for any amenity they put in place.
Yeah, right out of the books of the city or jurisdiction. That's exactly what
That's what
happened.
we're doing from a community perspective though, right?
No,
When we do a
we
development.
don't.
Okay, so,
Because every time you do something like that, that
So,
takes the
Alora-
away, okay, so that takes away the property rights of that owner.
no, not at all.
Yes, it does, because you
absolutely
put
does
government
not.
control
It puts it
over
back
that
on the
individual's right.
Homeowners Association, it puts it
Yes,
back onto.
that's where it needs to
The
stay.
community plan
Yeah.
and all of that. It's not the county saying do this. It's follow this pattern as
It's in our code. That's why this should be taken out.
It's the difference
The
between
county
should
should
and
play a
shall.
shouldn't play a role at all. I mean, it's like the county saying, you're gonna build a house, but you better have a lawn, and then you better water your lawn. Wait a minute. That just doesn't fly. We're not there yet.
Provide
We'll
them
be there.
the ability to do this.
I mean, you go to the city of Aurora, you build a house, and they do put these standards on it. I don't wanna be there as a county yet, because that literally, that's government taking over your personal rights, your personal property rights. It's up to you. If that guy wants it's his ball field. I'll put it this way. If the
It's
guy wants the
that
people to use his
community's
ball,
field
what do you mean?
that they're planning for, that they're developing for, and they should provide the amenities, the ability to.
Okay, are you talking
satisfy-
about communities
It's
that
ki- it's kinda
taxpayers
like-
pay for?
It's kind of like going out there and saying, okay, so you're building a community. You need to put in this immaculate landscape, but you're never required to water it. You don't have to provide water for those.
Well, one, I disagree with
pretty-
everything.
pretty-
Why would you as a government come in and say anything about any kind of landscaping?
We do it all day long.
No, we
It's in our
don't.
Rules and regs.
It is, but to a degree. Why would you go in and say,
Why would
every
you
time you
mandate
apply another,
somebody to put in a tree
And you guys-
never have to water it?
well,
because
and
it
that's
dies?
exactly right, because they die.
We have sticks that are basically really good
Yeah.
sticks of pine trees, and they should have been green.
And we did that, and we had a previous member wanna put trees all around the lots, and you can't keep them going because you don't have the water. One, we're trying to conserve water. Okay? As a county, that's what we're trying to do. For our people. Two, we wanna limit government control over your property rights. I don't know if you guys believe in that or not, I do. Okay? Literally, and every step you take to govern what an individual can do with their property, that gets further and further that way.
Well, look what we got in there now, real quick though, Danny, on page 450, just real quick. It says, all installed plantings shall be watered as needed to ensure survival. It used to be 2 years, and we crossed it out. We wanted a guarantee from someone that's putting in, that we required to put in any type of landscaping. We required 2 years. Well, now we crossed out the 2 years and said, they should be watered as needed to ensure survival on page 450, number two.
I know, I disagree with that one too.
I'm just saying, it was in.
I know it was, no,
relation to what
you
guys were
guys, I
talking
gotta
about.
say, I know this was in there, and I can remember arguing this, I really don't wanna get to. That's my personal belief, is that the more regulations you put on a person and regulate their property rights, you're growing your government larger.
Like, I'm a big property rights guy. I mean, I'm not big government.
Well,
You know.
I am a full property rights guy and limited government, and every time you put
So you don't think there should be
control on
any natural buffers of plantings or trees around a subdivision? Or
you know, I think
border
in
and
certain places, I think in the commercial settings,
So you're mandating that.
I think
But
in the
you won't
commercial
mandate it
settings,
as part of a
there
rule.
is a place, there is a way that you have to have architectural standards, yes. And eventually, I know our county, we're gonna have to get there to put some sort of buffering. I've seen that asked for, stuff like that, and I get it because it bumps up to a residential area. I can see that.
But the buffering has to be watered to stay alive. And right now, we're saying that
See,
water.
and I disagree with that, because you put up the trees like you put up the evergreens that I have, they don't water till they get going,
Yeah, for sure.
you know?
Water them a couple years, for sure.
Yeah, once you get them going, but then you ask for something that doesn't require, because I go back to, God, you guys, on one side, you're saying, man, you want the 300-year water rule, you want all this, but then we're applying regulations to make us use our water that we don't have. So I mean,
The buffering could be something different.
the buffering could be something different.
That doesn't require water.
See, I'm all about trying to conserve the water and limit the controls we put on people's property rights. That's really where I'm at, and I'll argue every point, and I'll primarily lose in about every one, because it is eventually gonna come, but that's my stance.
So, you and I are at an impasse.
Yeah.
What's the rest of the commission think?
You know, to be honest with you, I couldn't find E number 9 that said exactly what you guys were talking about. It said something different.
It was deleted.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was struck through.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying, you know, we'd argued about this before,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, I thought we'd compromise on excluding the fire department, to your point, because the fire department
I
already
lost that one,
covers
Kevin, I
themselves.
lost that one. Everybody wanted to, hey, make
Oh,
a
there
water
it is. I
thing,
see it
where
now.
I,
Yes.
I don't think we.
I was going down to 9 below, a couple
But
below that.
then how did we get it back to struck out? If you lost that battle, how did we
I
get
don't
it back
know.
to being struck out?
I don't know, how'd that one happen, Mark? I don't
We
know.
make it's Mark's fault. He's used to it though.
Blame it on me. I'm okay with that. What would you, commissioners, like to do
Proposal
here?
is to unstrike the line item up to the point where you're talking about for the fire department, because the fire department covers their own area.
And are you referencing,
Open space 9, whatever it is.
Open space 9, the other
Recreation
problem
and
with that is,
trails.
okay, Kevin, define appropriate.
Water sufficient to
Define it,
manage
what is it?
the amenity.
What does that mean?
It means you have water
Okay,
sufficient to
give me something it applies to.
ball fields. You're gonna put a ball field in, you're gonna put a park in, you're gonna put some level of control. You don't even have to use,
Okay, most parks don't even, have gone away from the lawn, other than some places, and they do that other kind of stuff. They do that xeriscaping and that rubber stuff and everything else. So I don't know where appropriate open space, when you say appropriate open space, man, that opens up a huge thing. So you're gonna do it to a ballpark, okay? But we're not gonna do it to a horse field.
and I'm okay with that.
You're okay with doing that to a horse field? Required?
You're putting in specific amenities for a community. It should be
Okay,
at
you
some
keep-
level controlled and
You keep saying,
adjusted,
okay, you keep saying for a community. Why do you say that?
because that's what we're talking about here.
No, this one isn't. Appropriate open space. It doesn't
You
say,
include in open space, you include ball fields, you include tennis, basketball courts, or both. Other areas, like parking for these open areas.
so then who determines what's the appropriate water need?
Take the word appropriate out and just say open space should include.
Well, then I really disagree, because then you say all open space, so then the next thing it
Yeah,
leads
you're
to
Well, then maybe we
is,
change it to physical amenities for a community. Should be required to have appropriate water. Ball fields.
you
tennis
see,
courts,
then the
anything
second
that
part of that,
requires
so
it.
then you want the county to take over regulation of the state, then.
Again, it's about setting the rules for the development
Okay,
of the community.
all right, I'll tell you. And I'll take my well. My well allows for a certain amount of watering for, I think it has 2,000 square feet of watering I can irrigate. Depending on if I have a horse, I can back off 1,000 for each horse, okay? So, now you as a county You're gonna come in and apply a regulation, no, let me finish, that says appropriate open space, okay, that's already governed by the state, okay, then you're applying an additional regulation on that property owner based on conditions.
Part of the community requirement, yes.
Yes, so how do you enforce it?
Right now, we don't enforce much.
I know, how do you enforce it?
We don't enforce even some of the things that we've already
How do you,
mandated.
how do you
in
enforce it?
these commissions.
How do you enforce it?
You don't.
So why do you have it in there?
You give them a rule that they can follow, and it's up to the community, the homeowners association, anything for that community to police themselves.
Okay, there you go. The homeowners associations always kind of dictate what's going on in the place. And that's the metro districts, and that's in all these new areas. Now, when you start doing stuff like this, you open this up to every lot out there, every large acreage out there. Really, if you look at it. And that's not right. And you put a requirement on a property owner that may surpass what they're approved for through the state.
You used horses a minute ago, so you are going to water your horses. You're not going to water the field for the horses. Right?
Why not?
Do you?
I don't know. I don't have horses.
Well, you said you had horses backed up, so I assumed that was a good example for you.
I said I had horses.
You said it a minute ago.
Yeah, horse properties.
Right.
That's what you
I
see.
expect them to water their horses, care for their animals, provide food when we don't have the acreage that should cover a large animal like that. So I'm expecting that there'd be some kind of rule to follow when you have like 8 horses in a small area. And we've had that conversation a number of times in here. So the county is mandating that already at some levels.
The county allows you to have 8 animal units on a 5-acre lot. Okay? It does not mandate anything as far as open space, watering them, or anything else. Now, many areas, the homeowners association comes in and changes that.
Right, but assuming that there's no homeowners association, and you've got 5 acres, and you've got 8 large animals on this, can that be sustainable? So pretty soon,
Of course it can.
the sheriff's department's gonna come by and say, your horses are starving to death, or your cows are starving to death, and we're gonna take them from you.
No, they don't.
They just let them die.
They do. See, I know, yeah, and you can go look, and if you, now you're starting to get into really some confusing things, because they allow 8 animal units on a 5-acre lot. And I will tell you, 8 animals, they can't be sustained unless you feed the heck out of them and water them, and it takes 10 times more water than what you think. But our codes allow that.
50 gallons of cow per
And
day.
we didn't touch that.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Is there a possibility to remedy the impasse if we were to consider unstriking number 9, given the fact that it's already in our regulations, it's in our regs, and just keep it there for now at this time? Would that allow this body to consider moving forward with this packet of 8 items as a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners?
And to limit the time, yeah, so we don't waste all you folks' time. That'd be fine with me, but I solely disagree with that statement in there. I do. It needed to be struck, should stay struck. It opens us up. I mean, we can't enforce it anyway. Why have something that you can enforce? Why put it in a document when you can't enforce it?
Yeah, thank you. And obviously, just a suggestion. So obviously, staff will take your lead on however you'd like to proceed.
Unstrike it?
I obviously do.
I know that.
We've got that figured out already, right?
and it was struck. So, go around the room, unstrike it or strike it.
The only difference is shouldn't include the fire department. Shouldn't include fire water. It's already covered.
It should, in open space, you shouldn't be required to walk through open space.
If you include
For
ball
whatever
fields-
reason.
If you include ball
For
fields
whatever reason.
in open space, then you should.
No, it's not a county responsibility to require you to water your ball
No,
field.
it's a requirement for the community.
No, it's a
And
requirement
we're
if you
talking
want to have
about the
people go
rules
there.
For how they develop and plan the community. If we're
Things.
not talking about rules for how they develop and plan the community, then strike the whole thing out. We don't need any of this.
No, we're talking about water.
You're missing the point.
No, I'm not. We're talking specifically about water.
So listen to this. So if you unstruck it and left the word should in there,
That's true.
should. Doesn't mean anything. Should happen, but who knows, it might not. But it should. So we can unstrike it, leave the word should, and we're good. There you go, it's a good compromise.
Okay.
That works.
That'll work, I agree with that.
You agree that it should be struck? Oh. Dan? Same thing?
Yeah, it's just, that, put a ball field out there, you gotta water. And not only that, you've got storms and the rest of it. You have a fire, you can go like, sprinkle water for the fire.
And that's covered by your fire protection agency. That's covered by your fire protection agency, who will do the review. It is should.
It
So
is
if we
should.
strike it, it should.
It should already.
It should now.
Okay.
I kinda like it a compromise.
No, that's a good compromise. That might work. Okay. You guys know where
I
I
think we're
stand.
past it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll yield to the chairman as to what you would all like to do.
So, right now, I think we came up with, we'll strike it and keep the word should in there so it doesn't make it,
We unstrike it.
we'll unstrike it and keep the word should in there.
The rest of the changes made sense to me.
Yeah, everything was good.
There's
I remember,
nothing else in there that we didn't talk about.
I remember talking about this one.
I can remember you going, this is gonna last all night.
Yeah, man, this one strikes at the core, boy, I tell you. This is not right, I don't believe.
So, Mr. Chair, we kindly ask for your consideration as a board for a recommendation of approval. That's what we're asking for
Okay,
to the BOCC.
all right. So so our recommendation for approval would have to include, because it has to go before the board this way, correct? And then we would present that to the board, and then the board would ultimately make the decision on to strike that, correct?
I'm,
Talk about the whole package of them.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about, I believe that you could recommend approval with the condition that you've
Right,
outlined here.
right. We would
With the
recommend approval
unstrike.
with the condition that number 9, under, what is it?
Parks and trailers.
Number 9, the strike through be removed. Okay? So that's the condition.
Okay, understood, thank you.
Any other comments around the rest of the
Other?
changes?
we can review the document as far as the content of the document rather than just the verbiage, you know.
That will be our next review. And Mike, when do we start that?
So the way we were approaching the next round of review that would go before the Planning Commission, again, we have an exhaustive list of possible changes in the zoning and subdivision regulations. So as staff, we go through that list and we determine internally which items that rise to the, kind of the priority list. And then we're going to pick, like I said, 5 to 10, like we did here. We had 8. And then that will just come before you and for your consideration. And then we go to the next 5 to 10. And that's just our approach to take these bite-sized chunks of these regulations and try to move through it and make some good adjustments, based on your, your feedback and guidance.
So just real quick, can you define the word should as far as rules and regulations are concerned? What does that mean to you?
The word should, in my mind, would be, I guess in some ways it's suggestive. This is something that the county would like to have happen, whereas shall is more of a must.
Okay, that's what it means to me too.
Okay, and pardon me, I misspoke earlier at the beginning of the conversation. I was.
The person that pushed for many of these areas to be should instead of shall. It was a commissioner.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we all went through all this update, and that was a pretty much one commissioner really pushed that hard and throughout the document.
Yeah,
Because when there was an agency that, and I can't remember who actually drafted the whole codes and was bringing us section by section to go through. And it was a year-long process implementing those codes. And that was the one thing that came out from this individual that said, we don't want shall in there because it puts when you do that, it puts a liability on the county to enforce it. Yeah. In so many areas we ran into, there was no way we can enforce these things.
One of them is shall we require, or it says should we require a road to be paved before issuing a permit? Mm-hmm. Should we require it? Yeah, of course we probably should. But should it be shall, is what I'm saying.
Well,
so it's a pretty significant difference in some of those instances. It's important.
There was many things that we spoke about, and I don't remember all the conversations, but there was a lot of things that came up, a lot of examples that came up. Where should and shall. Yeah.
But so I was reading, I got about 10 of them, and at some later date, we can go through those 10 and then look at them and say, hey, what do you guys think of this one? We'll discuss it, up or down vote, yes, leave it, should or shall, move to the next one and hit those 10. It probably wouldn't take us more than 45 minutes, maybe an hour.
And if I may add, when I look at this too, I mean, the may and the should is in one camp, right? And then you've got the shall and the will and the must. And the other. So I think we're in alignment there in terms of what the definition would be.
Okay, so we got the motion. We got the we don't have the motion. We've got the amendment, the condition. Okay. So do we have a motion with that condition? Can I make the motion?
You actually can.
I think I can on this one. I move that we accept the changes, accepting with the one with the condition, and request approval forwarded to the board of the code amendments.
I second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Adjourn, please.
I second it.
9:30. Oh, man. Adjourn. No, motion with Van. Everybody seconded it.
Mike seconded.
Mike seconded.
Yeah.